Still snowing here late February in New York, so it will be good to see sun, shorts, and tennis in March. Indian Wells in Miami. I'm Ed McGrogan here with Pete Bodo at Tennis.com headquarters. Pete, it'll also be good to see a lot of every of the big name players reunite after being scattered all over the globe since the Australian Open. What do you expect to happen once Indian Wells comes around?
Well, let's hope they'll reunite in the first place. I mean, you know how it is these days. Back-to-back Master Series events are very, very tough. I mean, it's getting to be one of those things where I think more and more the impetus is toward these guys. When you combine the money they make with the stress it puts on a body, that a lot of them are thinking they don't want to play back-to-back. So first of all, it's going to be interesting to see how many of these guys show up. And then I think, that it's going to be, it's really this beginning of the rest of the season after the Australian Open. No disrespect intended toward the smaller tournaments that are going on and have been going on, but this is when it counts. It's Master Series.
Who do you think really needs a impressive month of March, whether it will be difficult or not? Let's start maybe on the women's side.
On the women's side, I think someone like a Sloane Stephens, for American fans, particularly of readers of this website, I think it's an important thing for her to do well. She had a little bit of trouble there in Australia. Didn't do as well as she had hoped. She's been getting some coaching. She needs to take that next step. She's got to do that pretty soon. Some of the others that can use. I think Radwanska, after coming close to the Australian Open and then sort of more or less falling apart, playing a really lousy match there. I guess it was at semi. I think she can really use the boost. Azarenka, who didn't win that tournament, and she's played awfully well down there. It's been a while since Azarenka's really done some damage, so I think she needs to have a good tournament.
How about on the men's side? There's obvious. I think Djokovic comes to mind as someone who really does need to make his first stand of the year. But across the board on the ATP tour, what's Indian Wells and Miami mean for some certain players?
Well, Djokovic certainly. I think he needs to get some traction. He needs to win a couple of titles, get in the mix, play Nadal or a Federer, Nadal, a Murray, get through, punch through, and get that big title. I think Nadal doesn't really matter much to him. I mean, he's doing pretty well. Let's see how he holds it physically, and he's always done well at Indian Wells. I mean, that could be a bit of a bellwether for him. You've got a guy like a John Isner. I mean, he should really do well. He's had good tournaments in the desert before. He's played well at Indian Wells, so he could really sort of take that next step a little bit after these injuries and after the trouble he had early this year. As could Sam Querrey. Sam Querrey's another one who's been very, very up and down. Really going on a year and a half now. He really needs to get on the right track too.
Let's kind of close talking about the two events in general and this notion of a fifth slam that I think was once given to Miami. I think Indian Wells has sort of passed Miami by, but that's going to, Key Biscayne is going to do some renovations of its own in the coming years. Do you think this arms race really means anything in the grand scheme of things, especially because of how many other smaller tournaments have left the U.S. in recent years? Well,
I don't really see it as an arms race. What I see it as is really just an attempt to keep up with the Joneses and with the times. Now, Larry Ellison, when he bought Indian Wells, that was a game changer in many ways for the American tennis scene. In fact, even before that, before Ellison had it, there was a consortium, including some of the owners of Tennis Magazine and Tennis.com, were in the mix there. And, they really helped build that tournament up, and it really has surpassed Miami. However, I have it on pretty good intelligence from some folks at IMG that they really want to make a move. Really, sort of, it's time for Miami to renovate itself. It's time for it to regain some of the luster that's been stolen, mainly by Indian Wells. So, we'll see how the two of them. We'll see how the two of them go. I think right now they need to be a little bit closer of equal value, and especially in terms of keeping the top players coming and playing.
Well, it's going to be a big month for the Americans all around, as you say. Pete Bodo, I'm Ed McGrogan. Thanks for listening. Tennis.com.